On June 18th, 2024, Still Wakes the Deep is launched. It is a first-person horror game by the Chinese Room, the developers of Amnesia, A Machine for Pigs, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, and Dear Esther. You play as Cameron McCleary, known as Kaz, working in electrical on board an oil rig. The game starts with Kaz reading a letter from his wife Suze. It's not the nicest of letters, but it mentions him leaving home and someone named Roy. Kaz walks around the rig and speaks to some crewmates in the cafeteria, including Roy, who works as a cook. I saw some maps around the environment, which gave me the feeling of having some open sections and little direction. It got me excited for what the game could potentially be. Anyways, Roy is Kaz's best friend and also responsible for landing him this job. Roy mentions that Kaz got into a fight with someone and also mentions the police. You're called up to see your boss, Rennick, who sounds kinda angry over the PA. On your way to him, you can speak to more crewmates. I got a sense that everyone knows everyone and is relatively friendly with each other. Everyone you speak to knows your name, which made me feel like I can trust these people. You can see examples of games and even some gossip that the crew partake in, which amplifies a sense of camaraderie among them. On the dock, my hopes for a more open-ended game was shattered. I saw crates, boxes, damaged walkways, and the like blocking every single path except for one. Earlier on in the game, you speak to Finley, and she mentions that the place is falling apart. Rennick and the company gave you all a shit rig, and this seems to be the main excuse that everything always looks like a mess, since it's always in need of repairs. Up in Rennick's office, he screams your ear off and insults you, as well as mentioning the police have been harassing him due to him hiring Kaz. He gets a phone call about the mining boys finding something weird, and Rennick demands that they just dig right through it. After a little back and forth, Rennick fires you on the spot. Shit starts going down right away, and Kaz falls off the rig into the water. Kaz is saved, but while he's out, he gets a very bubbly, eroding vision of Roy and his wife Suze after he agreed to come to do electrical work on the rig. We don't know how long Kaz was out for, but in the meantime, these vine-type things have taken over the drill and the lower areas of the rig. When you're near it, you see that bubbly erosion take over your screen again, and we'll talk about this a bit later. The rest of the game consists of you working together with Roy, Finley, and other members of the crew to find a way to escape the rig. The main opposing forces here will be the weather, failing systems on board the rig, and the monster infecting crewmates. On an attempt to escape, this will see Kaz visit just about every major section of the rig in attempts to either buy them some time or help someone else survive. I might as well mention it here, but the voice acting really is great. It's one of the most talked about aspects of the game, and it's true.
We have to get to the helipad, alright?
I tried talking to him, but he came for me. Like, he didn't care me at all.
It's no him anymore, Innes.
It is very Scottish, and they can be hard to understand at times, but the actors did their job. I recommend playing with subtitles. The game mainly consists of running and hiding sections, just like Outlast. There are a couple parts where there is some platforming and no immediate danger. In these spots, you mainly gotta keep an eye out for lighting changes and the bright yellow paint. This game is another victim of this. Still Wakes the Deep has yellow all over the place, so much so that there's a setting to tone it down. I actually like this, and I think more games should have it. Maybe have it on the lower setting by default. Then if the game senses you're taking too long, remind them that they can bump it up. Just an idea. At the end of the video, I'll talk some spoilers, mainly about the monster and how I think it works based on clues during the gameplay. Also, I'll talk about the ending and my thoughts on it. It's quite a divisive one, so if you don't mind being spoiled or you beat the game yourself, then stick around for that. Back to the gameplay. Like I said, it's very linear, but it does a good job at staying scary. The sound design is well done and the graphics are insanely good. You can run it in performance like I did and it still looks great. I mentioned the running sections, but there's also the throw something to distract the enemy to allow you to pass sections as well. I have a problem with this though. My problem is that the crouch is on the B button, but so is the button to drop the item you're holding. So if you want to pick something up and then crouch, you'll have to crouch with nothing in your hands first. Same thing with standing back up. You can't be holding something. I have no idea how this was missed, but it was incredibly annoying. I'm the type of person that's crouching even when I probably don't need to be, and I feel like I'm not alone in that either. The game also has a light, which you can always have on without some battery to worry about. I don't think I'll ever understand why games like Outlast put the ability to see where I'm going behind a battery mechanic. Still Wakes the Deep gives you a headlamp that can never die and can be activated by pressing Y at any time. On top of this, no pun intended, but the flashlight is literally on top of your head. When crouching through some tight spaces, you can see the light goes off because it'll clip through vents and other beams that may be just above your head. You may not notice this yourself since the light tends to flicker when near those evil vines, so it's easy to mistake one instance for the other. Holding the right trigger is also your interact button with levers, handles, and climbing. They also make sure you're paying attention by requiring you to hold the left trigger when you may lose your balance or your grip. We've seen something similar like this in other games before, which makes me think of Tomb Raider, where you need to press X again to regain your grip when it slips on a ledge. There are two more optional mechanics that are worth mentioning, one being the phone calls. Quite a few times during the game, a nearby phone will ring. Most times it's necessary to answer to direct you to your next objective, but others it's optional. The optional ones are tied to an achievement, but I'll talk more about that in the spoiler section. The mandatory calls will see Kaz talking to crew from various sections of the rig. This reflects the familiarity the crew has with each other, because soon as you answer the phone, you both are immediately aware of who you're talking to. It's a nice touch. The other optional mechanic are the heaters. A couple times you'll need to warm Kaz up, but this is not a mechanic. The heaters throughout the game are really a spot where Kaz reflects on the state of the rig, the crew, and what his next objective is. We also get a window into how he's feeling right now. He may mumble something about Suze or Roy, or something he regrets from his past. These are really the moments where we get to learn more about the type of person that he is. Finally, there are no jump scares. I mean, there are small ones, but nothing overly scummy that I would even consider a jump scare. There's also literally one puzzle in the entire game. I am not exaggerating. Other than that, I've mentioned everything I wanted to talk about while avoiding story spoilers. So if you want to check the game out for yourself, now is the time to bounce. But please leave the video a like and subscribe. They both really help the channel. Thank you. Okay, spoiler time. Let's first talk about the monster. It's clearly some sort of parasite infection type thing. It's unclear how it spreads, but we get a heavy suspicion that Kaz is already infected with it early on in the game. As we make our way through, we can hear infected crew members calling out and saying things that may sound like regret and begging of some kind. This, mixed with the constant flashbacks that Kaz experiences throughout the game, it's safe to say that the infection feeds on bad memories, or at least brings them out of you as it makes its way into your brain. We know that Kaz and Suze's relationship is on the rocks, and the game shows us this under that same erosive filter that the infection comes across as. The optional phone calls also hints at this. Later in the game, when Kaz answers the calls, we may hear Suze on the other end, or just an onslaught of garbled noises, insinuating that he's infected and this thing is just screwing with his thoughts. I like that we don't have all the answers, so we can come to our own conclusions and speculate from there. You can play the game for yourself and have your own perspective on what you think is happening, and it can be totally valid. The ending, though, is set in stone. It shows that the lighter you gave Finley at the start of the game, you drop it into a gas leak, destroying the entire rig, stopping the parasite from reaching the mainland. It's not a happy ending for sure, since you spent like the last 6 hours trying to save your friends and yourself just for everyone to die. But the sacrifice Kaz makes is the morally correct decision. There's also a scene after all this happens, just before the credits. We get to see a sleeping Suze, the last time Kaz saw her before he left. There are pictures around the room showing their wedding and other family photos. We then see a shot of the sea, very similar to the very first shot in the game, but this time there's no rig. We also get a voiceover that's seemingly the last letter Suze sent to Kaz, saying that she knows he's going through a lot and they can fix things once he's back home. I kinda like this ending because it's definitive. There isn't a what if scenario that if the rig is saved or if Kaz escapes. If he did manage to escape, there's a chance he himself would spread the infection inadvertently on his own. Did you play the game? Either way, what did you think? Keep the discussion loose for those who don't want spoilers, but jump in the comments and we can have a discussion. Again, please leave a like and subscribe. They both help a lot. Thank you so much for watching. I'm on Twitter at SilverJS and Instagram at JSSilver. 3s for the E's. I'll see you all on the next one. Stay safe.